Is there even an Ayatollah that we can talk to right now? I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Latest reports say that the Ayatollah Jr. is alive, but not functioning. This is what we have. Actually, the word they used was malfunctioning. So I don't know if he's in bed in a lot of pain or if he's in a coma or what that quite means. But his dad was killed in the Israeli strike back on February 28th. He soon slid over into his dad's robes, metaphorically speaking, and has not appeared in public since the announcement was made. They had the weird cardboard cutout scene. Did you see the cardboard cutout scene? I had heard about that before I saw it, and when I finally saw it, I was like, no, this is weird. That's a bad sign. When the leader of your country doesn't want to go out on a balcony and he sends out a cardboard cutout and some other dude kisses it. What is going on? So Pete Hegseth spoke this morning, and don't get all happy and chipper. I mean, things are going well for the military, but we're still at war. And the first thing that Pete Hegseth, your Secretary of War, wanted to address was the media, and rightfully so, but he sounds a little ticked off, doesn't he?
I stand here today speaking to you, the American people, not through filters, not through reporters, not through cable news spin. A dishonest and anti-Trump press will stop at nothing. We know this at this point. To downplay progress, amplify every cost, and call into question every step. Sadly, TDS is in their DNA.
Oh, I like that line. It's a good line. Look, this is not to make fun of Hegseth, but this is a good time to go back and compare him to his SNL impersonation done by Colin Jost, and I think he did pretty good. Listen.
What's up, dillweeds? As you probably heard, Operation Epic Fury is underway, and as you could tell from the veins in my neck, I'm pumped.
I don't even think is that even trying to be an insult? Because it makes him sound cool. What's up, dillweeds? Next clip here, Pete Hegseth. He does this every time, so you know he's doing it on purpose. He goes out, he lays out the media for a while, dog walks them, and about a minute later, he reiterates the objectives. Now, this is something I have heard him do at pretty much every press availability that was scheduled, you know, where he has some sort of script or outline in mind. They lay down the objectives every time. And that's what makes it so frustrating when you got to turn it on some other channel and they're like, well, we don't even know what the objectives are. He says them literally every time.
Epic Fury is different. It's laser focused. It's decisive. Our objectives, given directly from our America First president, remain exactly what they were on day one. These are not the media's objectives, not Iran's objectives, not new objectives, our objectives. Unchanged, on target, and on plan. Destroy missiles, launchers, and Iran's defense industrial base so they cannot rebuild. Destroy their navy, and Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. Our objectives.
So he says that every stop. Now, at the other podium, next to your Secretary of War is your Joint Chiefs of Staffs. His name is Dan Kane, and Dan Kane is going to be in town. He's going to be at the Medal of Honor Museum. You hear a frequent guest of mine, David Hamilton. His outfit is putting together something at the Medal of Honor Museum, and it's a celebration of America's 250th anniversary or whatnot. But he's already said that Dan Kane's not going to do any press while he's here. This guy doesn't do a whole lot of press. So if you want to go see him, you actually have to go to the event, April 10th, Medal of Honor Museum. Look it up yourself. Your phone knows. But he started his remarks with something very sobering, because Dan Kane and Pete Hegseth had just come back from Dover. And it gets really real for you when he does this. He reads the name of the 6 of your fellow Americans who gave their lives serving, protecting you. And so I thought that was, I don't know, it kind of stopped me for a second, because I'm just going on about my life, and it's a Thursday, and I got a Parker's Pour this afternoon, and I've got to meet some other people for lunch, and I got a text from Miss Parker, and then all of a sudden this hits you, and you're like, this isn't a game. You know, for us, the war is almost like a TV show, and we're just binging it whenever we get a chance. But for 6 families, it was everything.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and thank you all for being here. I also had the honor yesterday, as the Secretary said, of traveling up to Dover with the President to welcome home our 6 fallen. It was an honor and a privilege for me to be there and to say thank you to their families. And I want to mention their names this morning. From the 6th Aerial Refueling Wing out of MacDill Air Force Base, Florida, but stationed as part of an active associate unit at Birmingham, Alabama, Major Alex Klenner, John Alex Klenner, Major Ariana Savino. She was posthumously promoted from captain to major, and Technical Sergeant Ashley Pruitt, the boom operator on that crew. From the 121st Aerial Fueling Ring, Ohio Air National Guard out of Rickenbacker Air National Guard Base in Columbus, Ohio, Captain Seth Koval, Captain Curtis Ankt, and now Master Sergeant Tyler Simmons, who was also promoted in the boom operator on that crew. To a person and every family member I spoke with yesterday, they all shared that their family members loved serving. They loved being part of a great team and a crew, and they loved airplanes and aviation.
So 6 of your fellow Americans just gave their lives volunteering in our military. Now, you can go on about your Thursday. Just try and enjoy it a little bit more and appreciate it a little bit more, because the sacrifice was made on your behalf so you could do this. Coming up next, you might be surprised how this is working out in the polls for Donald Trump. CNN was surprised. You'll hear it next. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to News Talk 820 FM WBAP. I'm your host, James Parker. You're home for Mark Lee, Van Camp, and Robbins, three funny guys that'll be on coming up from 11 to 2 this afternoon. So you know that the Iran war is still going on strong. Even more bombs are falling yesterday than the day before. That's according to your Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, just this morning. And things seem to be not really wrapping up, maybe even escalating a little bit. How is this all playing in the polls? Harry Enton, the pollster for CNN, says it's going pretty good. In fact, I'm not sure if he could be doing better with his base.
How are you seeing MAGA feel about the president right now?
Yeah, sometimes you look at the polling data and there are numbers that just jump off the screen at you. And this is one of those. Because just take a look here. MAGA GOP view of Trump. Approve 100%. 100%. If you are a member of MAGA and the GOP, you approve of Donald John Trump. 0% say that they disapprove. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to know you can't go higher than 100%. He is the 1972 Miami Dolphins. Now, there are some Republicans who disapprove of Donald John Trump, but they are not members of the Make America Great Again movement. The bottom line is this. If you are a member of MAGA, you approve of Donald Trump.
It's interesting, though, because there have been a couple prominent people who have sort of come out online, and they're very mad about this war with Iran because he promised no new wars. Is there any sign that people might be leaving MAGA relative to 2024?
Yeah, okay. So, I've said it before, and, the theme of this segment is Tucker Carlson be darned. And when we look at the numbers, I've heard some people say, oh, when you look at those MAGA numbers, it doesn't account for those who might have left MAGA. But take a look here. Americans who identify as MAGA in November of 2024, it was 28% of Americans. Now it's basically the same. If anything, it's slightly higher at 30%. The bottom line is this. The MAGA base within the GOP is not shrinking. It's the same size. If anything, it is slightly larger than it was back in 2024 when, of course, Donald Trump won a second term. So that 100% that Donald Trump has approval among MAGA GOP, that is not an artifact of MAGA shrinking. It's just an indication of how strong Donald Trump's grip is on that MAGA base.
Well, and that's a pretty big number there, 100. 100% of people who identify as MAGA are approving of the job that he's doing. Now, those two Venn diagrams, you would think they pretty much overlap completely, but it's not a pretty much. It's a 100%. So I think the question here isn't whether or not this Iran excursion, I love that term. It's a short excursion. Whether or not this will affect the midterms. The only question is, will it affect them positively or negatively? And look, if he wraps this up too fast and turns around and another government's installed and we have 6 more months until we vote again, we'll actually forget about this in the win column if it happens too fast. The media is not going to harp on it a whole lot. But he still has to have this in the back of his mind. This was Donald Trump answering the question a couple days ago. Are you worried about us being the world police? Are you, the Team America movie?
If the United States is working to secure the Strait of Hormuz for the benefit of other countries like China, and our allies aren't yet stepping up to your standard, is the United States getting back to being the world's policeman?
Look, the United States should not be very much involved. They can on a certain basis. They've been doing it for a long time. But I've always said, if you look back years ago, I said, why aren't we being reimbursed? These are the richest countries in the world. Why aren't we being reimbursed for maintaining the Hormuz Strait? And why aren't we being reimbursed for that? I've said that for years. You can go back. They reported on it yesterday. I've been saying a lot of things about the Straits. Number one, I said it's the one advantage they have. But that's a suicidal advantage because they kill themselves more than they kill the rest of the world. And there are things you can do with time. There are other things you can do. But I think we're going to have the situation straighten out pretty quickly. And I think we're going to have some good help. And I think we're going to be disappointed in some nations too.
All right. It's coming up next on WBAP. We're going to talk about this Cesar Chavez situation. This is gross. It's icky. It's very cringe. Does this mean we're going to have to rename all of these streets? I mean, there's entire towns named after this guy. There's all kinds of monuments. There's all kinds of parks. There's statues. Do we have to tear all that down? I mean, I think we do, but it's a lot of work. And do we have to go through the biography of everybody who has something named after them and try and nitpick it apart? Because I don't think anybody's going to pass that test unless it's named after Jesus. But hey, I want to remind you before we step aside that Parker's Pours is happening this afternoon. I'm going to be doing the James Show live from the Omni Fort Worth Hotel. The downstairs bar is called the Whiskey and Rye. And I'm going to do a live broadcast from 2 to 5. And then at 5:30, I'm going to host a round of trivia. At 6:30, I'm going to host a second round of trivia. We're going to have prizes throughout the entirety of the experience there. So we're going to be giving away gift certificates during the show itself, and then afterwards the prizes are going to be tied to whoever wins the rounds of trivia. And so come on out. It'll be a good time. I'd love to have you out there. And if you don't want to just come see me and judge me based on my appearance, look, we've got 3 gift cards to Eatsy's, 3 to Gigi's. So I'm going to give out a Gigi's. I even have them spelled out. A Gigi's, an Eatsy's, a Whiskey and Rye, then a Eatsy's, then a Gigi's, then a Whiskey and Rye, then a Gigi's, then an Eatsy's, then a Whiskey and Rye. So I'm giving out all kinds of prizes, and we're going to have a good time. So come out to Parker's Pour, Omni Fort Worth Hotel. Your phone knows where it's at. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Are we going to have to like rename everything Cesar Chavez is named after? I'm going to say that backwards. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. You've probably heard by now, but for the few who haven't, Cesar Chavez has some new allegations that kind of tarnish his legacy. ABC 7.
We have breaking news now. Civil rights leader Dolores Huerta says she was sexually assaulted and raped by Cesar Chavez 60 years ago. In a statement, she said she never previously discussed this because she was worried about how it would hurt the farm worker movement. However, after a New York Times investigation that just came out says Huerta said she could no longer stay silent. Huerta says the sexual assaults led to 2 pregnancies and 2 children she gave up for adoption. In her statement, Huerta said, in part, quote, "For the last 60 years, I have kept a secret because I believed that exposing the truth would hurt the farm worker movement. I can no longer stay silent and must share my own experiences," end quote.
All right, now this sounds just awful because there's different ways to interpret this and they all just sound terrible. All of them are just gross. Because some people, if you go to the comment section on any of these stories, they make the point of how you get pregnant twice from the guy and marry his brother if he's constantly, air quotes, raping you. And it's just, I don't know. If the guy's already passed away and this woman's like 96 years old, why would she lie about that? I don't know. I don't think she is. But I think they're soft selling it here. If you go read in more in the New York Times article, ABC 7 doesn't tell you that there's 2 other women who came out and said that he abused them when they were underage, starting at age, I think, 12 and 15. Okay, so this guy, if all that's true, that's terrible. It's a terrible guy. Now we have to have the conversation. Do we have to rename this road over here in downtown Dallas? It's named Cesar Chavez. Do we have to rename do we have to take down all his statues? Do we have to rename all the parks? There's entire towns that are named after this guy. Do we have to change the name of everything that's named after him now? And so if you want to try and zoom out a little bit, this is kind of like tearing down the Robert E. Lee statues. At the time, the important work that he's remembered for wanted to be commemorated by his peers. And so they erected these monuments. Who are we to go back after the fact and say, just because you found some flaws in this man that don't, pass the judgment of the modern times, what right do we have to go tear down monuments from the past? Wesley Hunt made a good point. He was on the Bill Maher show, and this was just a month ago. And he was asked about, taking down Robert E. Lee's statues and whatnot. And Wesley Hunt made a pretty good point.
Trump is putting the Robert E. Lee name back on buildings. I mean, are you down with that?
So when I was at West Point, I actually lived in Robert E. Lee Barracks when I was there. And as I said,
Robert E. Lee went to West Point.
Yes, he did. That's why the barracks is named after him. My brother, sister, and I are matriculated through West Point. We all graduated. And I'll never forget walking under the threshold of Robert E. Lee Barracks and think to myself, damn, this is one hell of a country. Because only in America can someone like me walk into a building named after a Confederate general and then be a successful West Point graduate. If we start changing the names on buildings, then every single building would be named Jesus Christ based on perfection. I bring that up because I want to talk about the progress, and the idea of us changing names on buildings actually doesn't harken us back to times where they weren't as good.
And statues,
and how
too?
can we not? Oh, my wife I've been black my whole life.
Yes.
So far, still. My wife is white, and we have 3 biracial children, and I cannot wait to show them and take them to places that wasn't always the case. There was a time when your mother and daddy could not be married. My children are going to have the opportunity to be second lining down in New Orleans, and then my wife is from Iowa. They'll be on the farm with their grandfather in Iowa. That is America,
Yes.
and I do not want to take down these statues and change the names of these buildings because they're a reminder of what was, and if we don't remember it, we are doomed to repeat it.
All right, so you think Wesley Hunt would say we need to keep the Cesar Chavez name on all these buildings? All these roads, all these parks, all these statues and monuments and plaques and commemorations and museums? John Oliver was making fun of Donald Trump because in his first term, this is a clip back from 2017, Donald Trump was making the point that you and I've made on this issue. Okay, fine, you tear down Robert E. Lee because he had slaves. George Washington had slaves. Thomas Jefferson had slaves. You're going to tear down their statues too? Are they unfit to be remembered in a positive light by history?
The president's concern seems to be that tearing down statues leads to a slippery slope.
This week it's Robert E. Lee. I noticed that Stonewall Jackson's coming down. I wonder, is it George Washington next week? And is it Thomas Jefferson the week after? You know, you really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop?
Okay, well, I'll tell you where it stops. Somewhere. Anytime someone asks, where does it stop, the answer is always somewhere. You might let your kid have Twizzlers, but not inject black tar heroin. You don't just go, well, after the Twizzlers, where does it stop?
All right, I'll make you a deal. Let's take down Cesar Chavez Boulevard, Cesar Chavez Park, Cesar Chavez Monument, Cesar Chavez whatever. Maybe we replace it with Charlie Kirk. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. If not Charlie Kirk, who should we replace it with? You know, Martin Luther King may have had some sexual peccadillos that may not pass the smell test of modern sensitivities. Do we have to rename all that too? Oh, is that untouchable? What's the difference? 800-288-9227. No, I think maybe we should rename some of them. I just don't know who yet. I'll spitball some more of my ideas with you next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I say we just leave the name there unless we're going to change it to something better. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. If you're just joining us, the whole Cesar Chavez controversy. Apparently he got a little rapey back in the day, and some of it was predatory on minor girls. And so parades have been canceled. Normal celebrations that have been held for decades now are being called off. And the next question is, do we have to rename all these streets, all these parks, all these monuments, all these plaques, all this? Maybe. If it's going to go to a better name, yeah. If not, leave it alone. I'm not a big fan of going back and changing it. Because even if, he did have his sexual predations, is that a word? Does that undo all the accomplishments he made? This is the same thing we say about Martin Luther King. Okay, so we found out that maybe he wasn't the most high fidelity of spouses in marital history. Does that mean that we should be judged by the color of our skin and not the content of our character? Of course not. So does this even undo his legacy? So here's a couple of ideas. I'll agree to it if we change them all to Donald Trump. Wouldn't that be funny? Oh my God, that would drive people so crazy. That would just, think of James Carville. He would just crash his car every time he saw one of those. James Carville would have a stroke if he saw that. Oh man, it would be graffiti. Like every day, people would be tearing him down and writing terrible messages on it. It'd be the world's daily reminder of how feral his opponents are. But what about like Charlie Kirk? That might be a good one, right? Charlie Kirk Boulevard. Do you have any better ideas? 800-288-9227. And someone sent me a Facebook message on the break. Said we should change the Cesar Chavez Boulevard to Bill Cosby Boulevard. No, that's not any better, sir. That's very funny. Everyone's a comedian. Mark in Mansfield, you're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP.
Hey, love your show. Hey, I don't know anything about Cesar Chavez. He's probably did a lot of great things, but this whole topic reminded me of one of my favorite quotes by a guy named Stanislaw Jerzy-Lek. He was a Polish poet. Anyway, he once said, when smashing monuments, save the pedestals because they always come in handy. So just remember that if we turn these things down, somebody's going to be put back on them, and then we'll find a fault with that person at some point. So nobody's perfect. Jesus was the only one that was a perfect person. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Enjoy your show.
Thank you very much, Mark in Mansfield. I hadn't heard that pedestal comment before. Nice little nugget of wisdom. Stan in Irving, you're next up on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey, Stan.
Hey, how are you doing, sir? Nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a brief comment, as like the other guy before me here. But all of this stuff was politically motivated years ago, and it's politically motivated now. Why don't they just assign the street a number or a letter and leave it alone? Who gives a flip if there's some 96-year-old woman claiming to have been raped by this guy 60 years ago? It's ridiculous.
I kind of like that attitude. I find that very appealing. Yeah, so the guy's flawed. We got it. Look, one of the problems you have when you name something after human beings is that a lot of human beings are going to have done something that you can go find fault with, or someone can find fault with. So do we just need to stop naming things after human beings? And, that it used to be like, I don't know if you've heard me talk about this on the show before. On our money, we didn't used to have people. We used to have concepts and ideas, and it would be like the Lady Liberty, like the lady that the Statue of Liberty is fashioned after came from our coins. That's how France knew about it, and it was just we didn't deify people. We didn't put them on the pedestal. We put the concepts of freedom and liberty and justice. Like these were the things that we were making statues of as concepts. And once you start worshiping people, you run into the same old human frailty that we all do, that we all have. We're not perfect.
I agree with you. This just it's all ridiculous, and it just needs to stop.
Well, Stan, you took the conversation in a good place. Maybe we should just rename all the Cesar Chavez monuments, streets, parks, whatever, freedom Avenue, Freedom Boulevard, Liberty Boulevard, something along that line. Let's get off of the deification of our fellow human beings and go back to these concepts. Steve in Irving, not Steve Irving, Steve in Irving. You're on WBAP.
Hey, man, yeah, I think it should be named over someone great that I don't think anybody has any flaws with unless you're an anti-Dallas Cowboy fan, and that would be Roger Staubach.
Oh, I love that. Steve, you've touched on one of my sensitivities of being a radio host. Like I'm a guy who doesn't have the genetic makeup that most people have where they're scared of public speaking. It doesn't bother me a bit. You could put a podium in the middle of the Super Bowl halftime. I'd be like, cool, I'll go do 5 minutes. But I do get nervous when I think like maybe Roger Staubach's listening right now. Like he's still listening to Dallas Stereo and he could turn on WB. What if Roger Staubach's listening? Here's the worst part, Steve. What if Roger Staubach is listening and he thinks I said something stupid and now Roger Staubach thinks I'm stupid? Oh my God. Captain America thinks I'm stupid.
I gotta tell you something. If I remember correctly, I think he passed away, didn't he?
No, Roger Staubach's still alive. Don't talk about him like that.
Is he? Okay. Well, either way, he came to mind, and I just thought, man, that'd be awesome. The dude was a legend in Dallas, so all the Chavez streets and everything, whatever, in Dallas at least, name them after Roger Staubach. Why not?
That's a great idea. Well, what do they do about Cesar Chavez Boulevard in Houston? What do they do about it in Cesar Chavez Boulevard in Austin and every other town that named all this stuff after him, the parks and whatnot? They can't do Roger Staubach everywhere.
Oh, we got plenty of Cowboys to pick from that era, man. I mean, they were one of the greatest NFL teams ever.
Well, I don't think that would fly for Cesar Chavez Boulevard in Philadelphia. You think they're going to put up, Calvin Harris or something? All right, Steve, good talk there. And I did double check. Roger Staubach is alive and kicking. He is 84 years old. And if he's listening right now, thank you very much. Now I'm nervous. Now you got me nervous. I don't care if Post Malone's listening. I don't care if Owen Wilson is listening, other famous people from Dallas. But for some reason, Roger Staubach might think I'm stupid. I don't want to say anything dumb in case he's listening. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Because the question continues, what do we do with all these Cesar Chavez streets and parks and monuments and statues? Do we have to tear them all down? Generally speaking, I would say don't tear down any of the statues, but if you want to rename a park or a road, fine. Just make sure you rename it after something worthy. Maybe someone worthy or something worthy. I really like the idea of throwing out Freedom Boulevard or, I'm sure most people have an Independence Boulevard. But if we don't already have that covered, let's do that. Maybe a Charlie Kirk. That'll drive our Team Blue neighbors just absolutely nuts. But if we could get away with it, I'd be cool with that. What would really drive them nuts? Trump Boulevard. Do I have time for one more? No, I don't. All right, Victor and Rockwall, you'll be first up. But we're trying to figure out what we do in the aftermath of the Cesar Chavez revelations that he was a predator. I'm James Parker, 800-288-9227. It's News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. All right, so we're going to rename all these Cesar Chavez streets now. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. We got a big task ahead of us. What are we going to rename all the parks, all the streets, all the monuments, all the murals? Do we have to repaint over all the murals? I don't know. Can we just, I don't know, put a little bit of a receding hairline on them and tell everyone it's Carlos Mencia or something? Because they kind of, I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. What? You know, we get put in these awkward situations, and we're not this side that really tears down statues. That's more of the, you know, the upset radical Team Blue faction. They love tearing down statues and renaming stuff, and I got it. But if you haven't heard yet, Cesar Chavez has some allegations that have a lot of people did follow up, and it's totally believable and reinforced and confirmed with multiple witnesses and multiple people confirming the longstanding rumors. Cesar Chavez was not such a good guy behind closed doors.
We have breaking news now. Civil rights leader Dolores Huerta says she was sexually assaulted and raped by Cesar Chavez 60 years ago. In a statement, she said she never previously discussed this because she was worried about how it would hurt the farm worker movement. However, after a New York Times investigation that just came out says, Huerta said she could no longer stay silent. Huerta says the sexual assaults led to 2 pregnancies and 2 children she gave up for adoption. In her statement, Huerta said, in part, quote, "For the last 60 years, I have kept a secret because I believed that exposing the truth would hurt the farm worker movement. I can no longer stay silent and must share my own experiences," end quote.
Man, if your allegiance to your politics supersedes your concern about being raped, your priorities aren't in the proper order. That is cult behavior. You know, that's what they said in the Catholic Church. We covered this up because we didn't want it to reflect badly on the church. So you covered this up, and it happened to you repeatedly? He got you pregnant more than once, and you didn't say anything because of the movement? Was it worth it? Another guy called in on the break, and he was like, this is about workers' rights. That should be honored. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of workers' rights. This is a capitalist system. We're supposed to be more concerned about the guy who owns the business. That's his. What about his rights? We force him to pay a minimum wage and all these goodies and collect all these taxes off of him. I don't know. Let's go to the phones. Because if we are going to rename all this Cesar Chavez stuff, what are we going to name it? Donald Trump stuff. I would like to see that just to see the people it irritates go mad. Victor and Rockwall, you're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP.
Good morning. My comment is, okay, if we're going to go and judge all this Chavez, I guess hoopla now, then do the same thing to MLK.
I know.
Okay. All these street signs, okay. If you're going to have a street sign or a monument, have it in their localities. It doesn't have to be nationwide. Okay, there's plenty of people that are famous and deserving in the U.S. and the world that could be put up instead of these people all over the place. The victim. Okay, I know she says that she held a secret, for 60 years, but come on, okay, we cannot judge old past things on today's standards, or else everybody in history will be judged differently.
Well, even if we judged him by the standards of his day, rape was still frowned upon in the 70s and 80s.
I got you. That's true. But as I said, okay, the main thing is if you're going to go ahead and distance yourself from Chavez and, from the parades and streets, do the same thing to MLK. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I'm just saying the pushback on that would be, well, Martin Luther King cheated on his wife, but at least it was all with adults and it was all consensual. There was no rape and there was no pederasty.
Are we sure about that? Are we sure about those things? If you dig enough, you find stuff. So it's and like I said, it's it's just, like I said, I just have a problem with people so quickly jump on this.
So what do we do? Do we leave them all Cesar Chavez Boulevard and things like that? No.
No. Okay, take them all down. Okay, make them all famous in their localities. Maybe over California. Like in farming towns, I guess that's fine. And as far as Martin Luther King, over in his hometown, that's fine. But not across the U.S., okay? Take those down. There's plenty of people that deserve it more or as much as MLK and Chavez. I'm just saying it's like, I think if people want to go and celebrate those people, they should do it in their localities.
Well, I think you made a great point there. Thank you. This is Victor and Rockwall. You know what? Let me play Scott Jennings. This was an issue that came up last year when Trump took down some plaques, I think at the Smithsonian or something, because they had been putting up just saying, hey, white people are evil, basically. And Scott Jennings was making the point that, if you're going to complain about that but not tearing down other statues, what are you really arguing about?
One of the things about Trump is that he forces people to think about politics in areas that they've never thought about politics before. Most Americans never thought that the president of the United States would have their hand in Smithsonian exhibits. And he is doing that right now. And I can't think of a single good reason why.
Yeah, the last time we sort of talked about the changing of historical exhibits was when all these angry mobs all over the country tore down historical statues all over the place, and the people who seem to be angriest about the Smithsonian review were cheering that on. So I agree with you. Occasionally, parts of our society do look into
those statues in
history.
museums.
And so no, they didn't look like they were putting them in museums when they were tying ropes around them and dragging them down. You may be misremembering how it happened.
God, I would love to have that man's job. No easy answers there. But I imagine we are going to see some name changes coming in the very near future. All right, next on the James Show, Spencer McGowan from Net Worth Radio is going to explain how the Federal Reserve decision to leave the rate unchanged will affect your money. That's coming up in 4 minutes on the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. The Federal Reserve stays put. How does that affect your money? Stick around. We'll tell you on the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. You're home for Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins. They're about to come on at 11. They'll be on till 2, and then I'll come back on at the Parker's Pour. We'll talk more about that in just a second. But my guest here, Spencer McGowan for Net Worth Radio, going to explain to you how this affects your money. First off, no move actually signals a lot to the market. What do you think they're going to take away from this, Spencer? Right? Well, what's the jobs data telling us? Is the Fed concerned about that? Well, the fact that they didn't lower it tells me they are a little concerned about inflation. Well, that's pretty good. All right, we're talking with Spencer McGowan from Net Worth Radio. You can hear him on the weekends here. WBAP also has the McGowan Group over in the Crescent. So when the Federal Reserve leaves rates unchanged, I think a lot of people are disappointed because they're thinking about the housing market and they would either like to buy a new house or refi a new house, and they want lower rates because, boy, that was so sweet when we had 3% rates. So are they just waiting for something that's not going to happen? Right. All right, Spencer McGowan. We have the economy generally looking pretty good, but it's been a while since we had a dip, since we've had anything more than, what are we at, a 10% correction right now? Well, and historically speaking, we're kind of coming up on being due for a recession at some point. We narrowly avoided one last year because we had that one quarter that was negative. But mathematically speaking, there's another one around the corner. All right, Spencer McGowan, what's coming up on Net Worth Radio this weekend? Yeah, I like that. Can I just ask you a random financial planning question here because this kind of ties into the same train of thought. No one is coming to save you. I've noticed a lot of people my age are just expecting Social Security to not be there at all when they retire. How likely do you think that is? And the government shutdown, is that going to affect markets if it doesn't get resolved pretty soon? All right, Spencer McGowan, Net Worth Radio. You can hear him at 4 o'clock on Saturdays and then again at 2 o'clock on Sundays. If they want to contact you at the office, how do they reach you, Spencer? There he is, Spencer McGowan. Appreciate it, sir. And your money's going to be fine. We'll keep an eye on it for you. You'll be fine. Coming up next, there is the crazy story of a guy who got a terminal diagnosis and decided he's going to take revenge on his ex-wife. You'll hear the story of the very jaded comedian coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. All right, married people, you're allowed to like this story a little bit. Divorced people, you're allowed to like this next story a lot. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Actually, I don't like this story at all, but it sounds like a movie on one hand. It sounds like it's fantasy. On the other hand, it sounds like something that could, happen every day. I'm surprised it doesn't happen every day. So it starts in Arizona. There's a guy who was married in Alaska, and after his divorce, he decided he's going to move down to Arizona, and he's going to do what he always wanted to do. He went into bar ownership and started a comedy club. He's an aspiring comedian. He gets to go up and tell jokes whenever he wants. His friends come by, host some open mic nights, have some big names come through. It turns out Doug Stanhope lives around the corner. If you're a fan of the comedy scene, you definitely know the name Doug Stanhope. He's hilarious. So fast forward a little bit. The guy's 61 years old. He gets a terminal diagnosis. He's got cancer. He only has a small amount of time to live. So if there's anything you wanted to get accomplished in this world, you might want to get to it, sir, because you're running out of time. Not to make light of the situation, but you know what he wanted to do? He wanted to go kill his ex-wife. I guess this wasn't an amicable split. I realize some of my friends are what we call happily divorced. Some of them are not quite as happily divorced as others. And so I know a lot of people who just downright hate their ex-spouse with just the hot heat of 1,000 suns, like in an unhealthy level. And I think this guy was one of those. So what does he do? Gets a gun, gets in his car, drives all the way up to Alaska. And while his wife is going to open her hair salon on Monday, this just happened. The ex-husband's there. Hey, look, it's Matt. Hadn't seen you in a while. What are you doing here, Matt? What does Matt do? Matt pulls out a gun and starts shooting. She runs away, and I hope she was doing like a zigzag pattern or a serpentine pattern, but she got away. She lived. I don't even know if she got hit. And so Matt, instead of chasing her down, he gets back in his car. I don't know, maybe he had a sprained ankle or something, but she ended up running away. So he got back in his car, and he goes to the house where she lives with her 87-year-old father. He parks, gets out of the car, walks all the way around to the back of the house. He can see his former father-in-law through the back window. Father-in-law doesn't know he's there. He pulls up the gun, aims, fires a few shots through the glass from outside the house, hits the father-in-law inside the house. Father-in-law dies from his injuries. Now, from there, there's a manhunt. And this is where it came on a lot of our radars. I know I'm terminally online. You're probably not. But Doug Stanhope, a revered comedian who was acquaintances with this guy, put out a video on Monday warning that, hey, my friend Matt Becker, he's out there, he's dangerous, he's on a rampage, and I think he already killed somebody.
Hey, if you're in Alaska and you're out of the loop, you know Matt Becker, stay away from him. He's armed and he's already killed somebody, and he's, got a long list of grudges. So if you see Matt Becker, call the police. Share this with anyone who knows him. This is in progress as far as I know.
Okay, now not too soon after that, he was found, this Matt Becker guy was found in the woods outside of the ex-wife and ex-father-in-law's house, dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and scene. So a couple of responses to this. Number one, that sounds like a movie. My God, some guy drove all the way to Alaska. He hated his ex-wife so much he's going to take it out on her. And if he couldn't get her, he got the person closest to her so he could just hurt her on his way out. Boy, he's been carrying around just like a fireball, like a volcano of hatred inside himself this entire time, I suppose. And then on the other hand, I can easily see, why isn't this happening every day? In a nation of 330 million people, you got to figure maybe 1,000, 2,000 people or so are getting the bad news of a terminal diagnosis. And if you have no repercussions, it's almost like the purge. If you're about to die anyway, what's to keep you from doing all these other crimes? What's to keep you from taking revenge on your ex or taking out that person that you think deserves it. I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying you should do it. You shouldn't. I'm not going to do it, I hope. But I could see that there's a lot of people who are really upset and really angry and really mad at someone and would really like to take somebody else out. And I'm part of me surprised that this doesn't happen more often. The thing I want to teach you, though, this is a teachable moment from me to you. And a lot of people could benefit from just the most basic rudimentary of public speaking skills. And I know you probably don't have to get in front of a auditorium and speak to thousands of people, or you don't have to get on a radio show and talk through a microphone to 100,000 people. But you do have to get up in the middle of your quarterly sales meetings, or when you're doing a sales pitch, or when you're in a job interview. You need to be able to tell stories. So I just told you a story chronologically, with the background first, with what led up to the action, what happened with the action, and then the aftermath of the action. The news does it backwards. Do not do what the news does. And check this out. They tell the story. I don't know if you've noticed this before. I find this frustrating as hell as a talk radio show host, but the news is a different animal. And just to show you, listen to how they tell the story 100% backwards, chronologically speaking. It drives me nuts.
As becoming the air at 4, a man, Anchorage police say tried to murder his ex-wife and was a suspect in the death of his former father-in-law, has been found dead. According to APD, the body of 61-year-old Matthew Becker of Arizona.
Wait a second. Look, they already told you the end. There's no build-up. They just tell you the end first, and then they slowly give you the background information in reverse order. It's the weirdest thing.
It was discovered Sunday morning in the woods in Eagle River. Police have not said how he died. According to charging documents, Becker turned up at his ex-wife's hair salon on Cordova Street Saturday morning as she was getting ready to open the business. She told police Becker got out of his car and shot at her several times as she ran for her life. Becker's ex-wife told investigators that she was worried about her elderly father who had lived with her in their Airport Heights home. Police believe that Becker drove directly from the encounter with his ex-wife to her house, where he allegedly killed her father, 87-year-old Romaine Clark.
Based on preliminary investigation, it appears that the suspect went to the rear of the victim's residence, fired a couple of rounds through a glass window, striking and killing the victim, and then fleeing the scene.
Alaska's news source spoke with Becker's brother today, who told us that he owned a comedy club in Bisbee, Arizona, where he moved after his divorce. He also told us his brother had recently been diagnosed with terminal cancer.
See, I told you, I started with the comedy club in Bisbee, the divorce, then the terminal cancer, then the trip to Alaska. They told it 100% backwards. Don't do that. Do what James teaches you to do, and you'll be a better public speaker. Coming up next, I'm going to introduce you to the Assimilation Act. If you haven't heard of this, I think you might like it. A representative in the House of Representatives, Andy Ogles, put out a promo for it 2 days ago, and you'll hear that next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Have you heard of the Assimilation Act? I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. You're home for Markley Van Camp and Robbins. Three funny guys that'll give you stories you don't hear in the mainstream media. Andy Ogles is a guy who's been going viral quite a bit for saying that we need to end the H-1B visa program and we need to start mass deportations of people who don't seem to be assimilating too well. And now he's finally put pen to paper, and he has what's called the Assimilation Act that he's put out in the public discussion. And then on social media, he put out a promo for it. There's a lot of special effects in this, but if you can listen through, I think you might like the sound of this.
It was just kind of bred into me to love country, to love God, and to try to do the right thing. But this idea that doctors and lawyers were brought into this country to help our society is absolute nonsense. Go back to Hart-Celler, back to the 1960s. Let's abolish it and, quite frankly, deport them all. This is the United States of America. We get to decide who comes in, and Mr. Chairman, we get to decide who leaves.
Let's look at the cities. Let's look at the nations that have allowed themselves to be invaded by the peoples from other nations. London, migrants, 40% of sex crimes. Paris, migrants, 48% of their crimes. Rome, migrants, 83% of street robberies.
Never again will the land of my people fall into enemy hands.
That being said, I don't want the Brazilification of America. I want America to be great. This is about America first.
We take side in housing and we into the side who has to lead. And I want my country back.
So the Assimilation Act puts a pause on immigration, almost all immigration. I think a lot of people are down with that. We don't need to end all immigration whatsoever. Aren't we glad that we allowed Elon Musk to immigrate here? Aren't we better off for it with the companies he's built and the technologies he's innovated? And you know about PayPal, you know about Tesla, you know about SpaceX. Have you heard about the Boring Company? They're making big tunnels under cities right now. I believe was it Miami that's getting the tunnel right now? But what he's talking about when the Hart-Celler Act that he mentioned there, let's go back and repeal that. So that's the Immigration Act that passed in 1965 that undid the immigration setup that we've had since 1920. Now, 1920 was the national origins that set a quota based on the current, or at the time, contemporary population of the United States. And we were going to arrange our immigration quota of 150,000 legal immigrants per year, which was, going to increase as population increased. But we weren't going to take in more than 3% of our population. And it was going to be from a similar ratio from the existing population. So seeing as how a bunch of us are English, then English is going to get the lion's share of immigration. A bunch of us are German, a bunch of us are French, a bunch of us are, and then on down the road with the Dutch and so it would keep a similar, it's supposed to be an equivalent proportion of each nationality out of the total pool. And in 1965, they said, nope, let's not do that anymore. Let's not discriminate against the third world people. Let's not discriminate against Eastern Europeans or Southern Europeans. And so that's when it is opened up, and we have the system where we have today with chain migration and people coming in from third worlds and pooping in the streets, and they're not assimilating very well, and they're setting up the Leering Center. We didn't have Leering Center problems before 1965, did we? So that's what he's talking about there in a little more depth. And, we're going to jump into that on the afternoon show. A couple other things that I know we're going to be doing at the Parker's Pour this afternoon. Come on out. We're doing a live broadcast from 2 to 5 in Fort Worth today, the Omni Fort Worth. It'd be nice to see you at the lobby bar, Whiskey and Rye. But the Tarrant County Judge Tim O'Hare may be able to stop by. He said, I think 4:15, so we'll see what that means. But yesterday, he put out a statement to end Cesar Chavez holiday in Tarrant County, because Tarrant County is set to recognize Cesar Chavez Day on March 31st. So that's 12 days from now. So yesterday, he put out a statement to end it, and he's looking into whether or not he can eliminate that without having to call a special meeting and go through some formalities here. But, then the question comes, well, do you just erase the holiday? What about all this stuff? I rented a suit. We've got some food trucks coming out. Maybe they'll just make it like an extra Veterans Day for this year. But in the future, let's just drop it. How about that? We don't have to replace it with anything. I think we have enough holidays as it is. But he'll be out there. Chris Putnam from Dallas Express is going to stop by the Parker's Pour at the Omni Fort Worth this afternoon and give you a little more details. He did a ride along with ICE when they went out picking up bad guys a couple weeks ago, and it's the Dallas facility, but he ended up going, I think they went to Fort Worth, and they went all over the place, and so he went on a few ride-alongs. He's going to talk about what that experience is like, so you'll get a first-hand story there. But everyone's invited. Come on out. I'll be there live from 2 to 5, and here's the cool thing. You can bring your kid to this one, which I have 4 kids, and that's such a pain in the butt, especially for something that's happening during the day if I can't bring my kid. And I can't promise this will be at all of our Parker's Pours locations, but since this one is in the lobby bar of a hotel, you'll actually be able to bring the kiddo by. Also, if you hang out after the live broadcast, we're going to have a happy hour where I am hosting trivia. And the 2 rounds of trivia, one at 5:30, one at 6:30. I've already written the questions. I've got to print out the answer cards. I'm using the company machine for that. You better believe it. And I'll be giving away prizes for that. We've got $50 gift certificates to the Whiskey and Rye Bar. The grand prize winner gets a $100 gift certificate. But then we also have gift certificates, gift cards to Eatsies and Gigi's for people who attend the live broadcast. We'll be giving those away pretty much every 15 minutes. So come on out. Parker's Pours, Whiskey and Rye Bar in the Omni Fort Worth Hotel. Live show 2 to 5. Trivia after that. I'll be there from 5 to 7 for a happy hour. We'll do a round of trivia at 5:30. We'll do another one at 6:30. And then we'll have a great time. And I would love to meet you. Genuinely. You can come by, take a picture, judge me based on my appearance. I'm James Parker. Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins is coming up next. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP.